I had my first panic attack out in the open water swim. It was back in 2019 when I was just entering triathlon. And I remember thinking that 500 yards sounded like such a long distance to swim in the open water. And they had these open water swim camps. And so I went to my very first one and I'm out there swimming and I'm way off course and I get a panic attack. I'm starting to hyperventilate and it's really scary. And they have kayakers out there, and so if you're getting into a bind, you can grab onto a kayak and collect yourself, calm your breath, because swimming is so rhythmic. Swimming is it's all about that stroke, but keeping your breath under control and in this beautiful meditative rhythm. And anyway, so many people suffer from anxiety in these open water swims, yet we still show up for those races. We still enter into these sporting events that challenge us. And that I think is why many of us do the Ironman series or triathlon or even ultra marathons. We're testing to see what we're really made of. And the word endurance, the word endure, to endure something is to face pain and suffering, but not actually quitting. And you're going to endure something. And that can be probably parenthood for some people. It's not always easy, but it's lifelong. So endurance is going through something that's really challenging. It's a trial. It's painful and it's for a long duration and you're not giving up. So triathlon is an endurance sport. And so open water swims or these swims can be extremely anxiety provoking for many, many people. And of course, I'm one of those. And so I have worked through a lot of that anxiety and I've been able to get through races. I've been able to get through those swims. I've been doing this for 6 years. I have won some races, getting first place. I've been on the podium many times. And just recently, here I am 6 years in, and the panic has gotten to a point that is much worse and much more significant than I would expect at this stage in my racing experience. And so it's a little unusual and then it totally sucks. So you're out there and just imagine you're swimming with hundreds of people and people are kicking, there's bubbles, there's your own anxiety, there's race excitement. You can't touch the ground, you're in open water, you don't have any flotation device, so you can't rely on that. You can't grab onto somebody. There's no poolside to grab onto, you're just out there. And you're out there, and if you start hyperventilating, that can be a really scary situation. And especially if you're seeing way off in the distance, 250 yards out or 150, however long the kayak is, you're going to have to swim to that kayak if you're freaking out too much, right? So you need to learn. You learn how to calm your anxiety fast in that water. And I talk about this in a lot of my keynotes, a lot of my workshops, is how do we calm anxiety fast? How do we recognize where we are in our stress threshold? And swimming has taught me so much about this. So to be out there just recently, I had a race in the past weekend and then a couple of weekends before that, and they were not great swims. And it's really frustrating because they were beautiful swims. They were doable. The distance was doable. It really should have been a really wonderful swimming experience. And yet, it was some of my worst swimming experiences where I'm hyperventilating and I'm having to grab onto a kayak. I haven't had to grab onto a kayak since the very, very beginning back in 2019 when I was just learning the sport. So what's going on and how am I overcoming this challenge I'm currently facing? And that's what I want to talk about today. So there are 4 things that I'm doing to overcome the panic and the anxiety in that water. And you're going to be able to apply this to anything that is scaring you, anything that is making you feel super anxious, whether it's in a car. People experience this after a really terrible car accident. There's anxiety behind the wheel. This is legit stuff. where all of a sudden you're now afraid in the car. And then that can translate into elevators and airplanes. And so there are definitely times as an adult where we are going to find challenges and anxious situations that may not have been there in the past. And so this is what I want to share with you and how I'm overcoming this because I refuse to let anxiety rule my world. I refuse to let anxiety be the reason I don't want to enter the race again. So I'm going to conquer this. I'm going to face this. And that's what makes someone who's going to endure and see what we're really made of versus those who don't. And this is what I'm hoping to encourage you is that, even someone who's experienced in the sport, we still have to face this. So, number one is I needed to identify the core problem. So, we need to identify the core problem. What does that mean? When I'm out there in that water, what I realized was that I am obsessing over my swim buoy. So when we're out there in the open water swims, we have these flotation devices around our waists. And what I've noticed this season is that when I'm out there swimming, I'm allowing myself to grab onto that swim buoy 500 yards out, 1,000 yards out, 2,100 yards out. So I'm relying on the swim buoy and I'm grabbing onto it during my training. And then if I'm in the pool and I'm doing drills, some of those drills we are swimming as hard as we can for 75 yards and we might be resting and we're hanging on the side of the pool for 20 seconds. So in my training, I have been building in hanging on to something. So not swimming my distance solid. So that's number one. Number two, what I found is that I was clocking all the kayaks and figuring out what can I grab onto. So while I was out there, I identified the core problem, which was my brain was looking for something to grab onto. So I had to reflect on what my training was doing. And that was how I identified, okay, I'm training and I'm relying too much on the buoy, and I'm training and I'm relying too much on the pool. So my solution, take away the things I'm grabbing onto. So today I had the privilege to be around friends who have helped me through this, which leads me to my number two is asking for help. Don't do these things alone. People are there to help you and to grow you and help you to solve the problem. And if you're someone who's gotten afraid of driving in your car, you can have a friend drive behind you. You give yourself permission to say, I can pull off on this next exit. It's stretching yourself. You've got to expose yourself to the thing that's scaring you because that's how you're going to overcome it. So going back to asking my friends for help, I said, hey, you know what? I'm getting like my anxiety in the water has gotten much worse. And it's in correlation with these swim buoys and grabbing onto something. So I've identified the problem and now we're going to train and fix it. So my friends are like, hey, okay, this is what we're going to do is you're going to swim without your buoy. Today is a slow swim for me. We're going to just swim short and I'll swim. She's like, I breathe and I look in one direction. So you're going to swim to make sure I have eyes on you. And this person happens to be a swim coach. She happens to be a first responder in the water. She is experienced. So I had the gift of a friend who's experienced, who's saying, hey, we're going to help you with this. And you're going to swim without the buoy for as far as you want to go. And if you feel in a bind, and then she coached me through some techniques, which all of the techniques that I had used before for the anxiety was not working. So I had to figure out something different. And one of those things is to flip over and you're looking at the sky. Well, I only flipped over and looked at the sky in a crisis in the open water during a race. I never have actually trained doing this technique. So she's actually encouraging me. She's saying, okay, no, we're going to train you to get comfortable flipping onto your back, getting comfortable resting on your back, doing backstrokes, treading water, doing different techniques to manage the anxiety during your training. And I know it sounds obvious, but oftentimes when you have a training plan and it's telling you to do drills, it's telling you to go a distance or a certain time, you don't integrate in these anxiety techniques because when you're out there training, you're not anxious. My anxiety only shows up when I'm out on race day. So today we went buoy free and I was monitoring my zones of anxiety. I was at a probably a mild anxiety, a little anxious out there, but I was able to keep it down. Great technique. It was a beautiful morning. So number two is talking to your friends. Number two is asking for help, reaching out to people to help you stretch in your exposure, which leads me to number three is you have to expose yourself. You've got to get yourself facing those fears. There is a quote in the K-pop Demon Hunters, the Huntrix song Free, and it says, "We can't fix it if we never face it." You can't fix it if you don't face it. If you've got anxiety and it's controlling your life and you continue to avoidance is the worst thing that you can do. Hey, I could say, you know what? I'm leaving the sport for good. And I'm going to tell you, last weekend, I was strongly considering that. I was strongly considering leaving the sport, that this was my last race because it sucks to have that level of anxiety out there, especially when I'm showing up to the race and I want to get on the podium. It's really defeating and it really sucks. And it's also very, very scary to be out there in panic and not be able to touch. So you can't fix it until you face it. So I'm not saying if you are claustrophobic to go put yourself in, a really claustrophobic situation, but I am actually saying that. I am actually saying expose yourself, but do it. Go back to number two. Do it with someone who loves you, who supports you, and stretch. Get a little uncomfortable. Be used to getting a little uncomfortable within yourself to practice some of those self-regulating techniques so that the anxiety does not control your life. So the anxiety doesn't escalate so bad that you're avoiding key things that are impacting the quality of your life, and it's impacting your relationships, it's impacting the activities, because now you're avoiding all sorts of things. It snowballs if you let it. So I'm strongly telling you not to let it. The final thing I'm going to say is, if you first of all, if you have listened all the way to this point, I am a naturopathic doctor. I am a speaker, and I love to educate on how to self-regulate, how to monitor stress, and how to dial down the anxiety, how to calm that down. As a naturopathic doctor, we're going to get into this last point. So you're going to see a little flavor of how I'm using naturopathic medicine as it relates to this problem. So the final thing is that I'm in perimenopause. I'm 41, I'm early on, but when our hormones are dropping, anxiety can go up. When our hormones are dropping, our ability to self-regulate the cortisol response and that stress response, the buffers are going down. And I'm acknowledging that. And I'm like, okay, this is yet another thing. So it's a contributing factor. So number four is identifying the contributing factors. So the contributing factors can be hormones. The contributing factor could be that you did not take your magnesium that day, or you went to the race loaded up on a food that you know inflames your gut and inflames your brain, which automatically increases more cortisol, and you can't regulate very well. Contributing factors might be electrolyte imbalances. I have these supplements and herbs that help to monitor cortisol and help to monitor that anxiety response. I don't want to take a lot of that because on race day, I want to rely on adrenaline. I need that adrenaline to get through the race. So it's a little bit of a tug of war of managing the adrenaline, managing your breath work, and the stress to get you through the swim on top of the anxiety. So it's a cluster. It's a cluster. But that's how I'm facing this, because I refuse to let anxiety take me away from my outlet, take me away from my joy of the sport. And yeah, to endure equals suffering and pain. That's true. But I am going to overcome the panic. I'm going to dial that down, and I've got lots of strategies in place. My friends are helping me out, and I'm integrating that into my practice. And that's what you got to do. Is if you want to fix it, you got to face it. All right, I'm Dr. Lexi. I hope you enjoyed this video on how you can overcome anxiety, especially when it's showing up as an adult. And yeah, if you want to hire me as a speaker, I am here and would love to be invited to your event or do wellness workshops in your organization. And as a naturopathic doctor, if you are wanting stress regulation and more tips on how to help your brain and how to help your body in a natural way, that is what I do. So, Dr. Lexi here, and I wish you a very calm, strong, self regulated day. All right, Dr. Lexi out.